Free yourself with me. Free yourself with me. Free yourself with me. Free yourself.
Just taxi cab confessions.
Yeah, I hear that.
With Supreme Mathematics, we're gonna talk about the situation that's going on here in Hempstead. So I'm just gonna let him go ahead right now and just tell it like it is.
Built to Hempstead. I can start right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Hempstead as a village is a real serious issue in terms of the leadership that needs to be in the Village of Hempstead right now. The major issue in the Village of Hempstead right now, should Hempstead remain a village or should Hempstead become a city? The reality is, under the administration that we have right now in the Village of Hempstead, it would be chaotic for it to become a city because city government deals with more revenue to be returning to the Village of Hempstead. And one of the things I do agree with is that right now the auspice of the Hempstead Village government is based on now. It's based on the leadership of the mayor that's been elected by the parties. And in village politics, it's always about politics controlling the assets of the village. Whereas the Village of Hempstead doesn't control its own assets at all. It's controlled outside the village. And plenty of people have heard me say this many times, that Woodbury controls the Village of Hempstead. In the flip shoot, if Hempstead was able to go and get the revenue that it's missing in terms of the tax base that it's missing out of the Village of Hempstead, and the mayor, Wayne Hall, many times has said that there's definitely too many pieces of property that's owned by the village that's off the tax roll by other non-for-profit organizations like the Nassau County for one, the town of Hempstead for two, and other little groups like Hofstra University, the University of the Medical Center, all has properties in the Village of Hempstead that is off the tax roll. And if you were able to put those properties back on the tax roll, it would help a lot. And also in terms of the Village of Hempstead being a revenue-making municipality, at the current rate right now, it's not raising enough revenue to maintain itself as a government, which is a real major problem. Regardless of what government party takes over the village, the problem is that the village itself as a municipality is not bringing the revenue that it needs to. And some of this reason the revenue is not coming is because of the leadership starts from the legislative body in the county of Nassau, where federal dollars come down and allocated through block grants. The money that's allocated to the Village of Hempstead is always shortchanged to the Village of Malvern. Malvern will receive the same cut of pie, but for some reason the revenue that comes from Malvern, which doesn't have a strong tax base at all, compared to what the Village of Hempstead does. Malvern doesn't have a train station, the Village of Hempstead does, which makes it a special village within itself. Anytime you have massive transportation coming to a side of the village, it itself brings in revenue just from that alone. And to say that the Village of Hempstead is not bringing in revenues because of one, the industrial park of the Village of Hempstead is not being developed. It's an undeveloped industrial park that does not bring enough revenue into this area. And then when you look at the main county road, the major county road is Peninsula Boulevard. Peninsula Boulevard has 1,000% cars per minute that come down. If there's not revenue being brought on that level alone, and what I mean by that level, you have an opportunity in the Village of Hempstead to have fast food train restaurants come down like a restaurant row inside Peninsula Boulevard coming into the Village of Hempstead. It comes all the way from Far Rockaway all the way down, and it's a major county road that comes through the Village of Hempstead, where again revenue is not being brought in to the village, and that comes from a leadership that's not thinking how to bring in new dollars into its area. I believe if Mayor Wayne Hall and all his wisdom and all his colleagues and council people that supposed to be making a better village was actually look at what Village of Hempstead really is and try to turn it around. And a part of that turnaround, and I will tell you the truth about this, but part of that turnaround is redeveloping downtown Hempstead. Because in redeveloping downtown Hempstead, we'd get an opportunity to manage a $12 trillion industry and bring in revenue. And I will agree that that project is a real great project if it's managed in the right manner. And what I do feel about that project also is that it will do some gentrification. It will set people aside and put people out if there's not a community benefit agreement produced that will protect the people in the village of Hempstead. You can't build new structure with the infrastructure that's falling apart and breaking down and decaying. And that's one of the problems that's happening in the village of Hempstead. We have roadways that has decayed, sewer systems that are broken down, water treatment that is really bad, schools that have fallen down and decay, schools that have asbestos inside them, schools that have unsafe playgrounds, schools that have trailer parks as schools. We have infrastructure as a village, parks that are unsafe, parks that can't maintain 1% of the population of the school, of the community. We have parks that are not safe. We had one park that was closed in the village that was deemed unsafe, the most safest park in the state of New York, and the only thing they did was gave us foam rubber to make that safer park, which I don't think was really cool. But reality is that the management of a village has to take care of infrastructure for anything else can come. So to give a developer the rights to come into the village without a community benefit to protect the residents of the village of Hempstead is a very scary idea. And the reason why I said it is because we know for a fact that population in terms of housing is a major issue nowhere or anywhere you go in the village of Hempstead. So there's going to be new housing that's going to be developed. That means new residents. Right now, to change the village government, 1,500 people can change the government in the village of Hempstead. So you can bring 6,000 new people in. Guess what? You got new government coming in. You have new people coming with new ideas and new thoughts. Guess what? If you don't have a CBA in place, you get pushed right out the way. No matter how long your people lived in the village of Hempstead. I had some families lived there for 50, 60, 70 years. Those families will get pushed out by just having new populations come in with new government ideas and new thoughts. So the CBA, it protects those residents that's been here for so many years. With that same protection comes businesses that exist here now that won't be able to be pushed out and ran away to get the right to return and come back inside the village of Hempstead. And last but not least, the unemployment rate. We have 35% unemployment in the village of Hempstead. 35%. That means the average young man or young woman that you see standing around is unemployed, don't have a job. So there should be a job training program that the developers produce, and all the trades that will be a part of any construction site that'll be inside this new development or redevelopment, whatever type of development you want to call it. There should be carpenters, plumbers, electrician trades, masons, steel workers, you name it. There should be a trade now that starts young people and adults as well who don't have a trade that are able to be a part of that development, so that we'll be able to share in the profit growth of any development that happens in the village of Hempstead. My take on the village right now as it stands is that the village of Hempstead is a great place to live. There's really nothing wrong with it. It's just that it's been mismanaged. And it's been mismanaged for almost 20 years. It's not just the Wayne Hall administration. In the Garner administration was mismanaged. And I truly believe it's because it's been a minority community has been that part of that mismanagement. Because you can't take a government like the village of Hempstead and set it aside and say we can just do what we want with it without realizing there's trillions of dollars that come through it consistently, daily. There's not a dollar that doesn't come through the village of Hempstead the county doesn't touch and the village should touch and the town of Hempstead do touch, because they have their whole hands inside the largest village in the state of New York and maybe even in the world in terms of the size of the population of 70,000 plus people. So the reality is, should we become a city or should we stay a village? My biggest fear is the annihilation of the village. I read some documents and I talked to some people that said that first the village of Hempstead has to be annihilated, removed as a village, becomes a hamlet, then apply for citizenship through the state of New York. The fear that I have is that, one, there's some people who don't like the administration that's existed today in the village of Hempstead, and it would hold back its citizenship until that administration is abolished, until it's totally gone out, and then release it back to the administration that they deem valuable. Which would really happen is that there'll be no more election in the village of Hempstead. It'll be a hamlet, and those organizations that create the application for citizenship will become the new citizen council that will be able to create a charter that will develop a municipality that becomes known as a city, and you may either have city council or ward councilman, but it'll be totally different and totally new. So the question now is the assets that the village do have right now, what happens to them? What happens to the monies that the village has now? What happens to the property the village has now? What happens to the revenues being produced now to the village? If it becomes a hamlet, does it go to now the town of Hempstead, or does it go into the slot box of the county? What happens to it, and will it be restored and renewed under citizenship? Those are some questions we should be asking. That's really important, because reality is we still have Long Island Railroad, we still have trailways, we still have a municipal bus service that comes through here, we still have taxi cabs, all who still get licenses and get leases and all that revenue that comes through the village. We still have parking meters. So the question is, does that revenue get abolished, or that revenue stays, or that revenue get replenished inside citizenship? Those are questions that the smart guys have to answer. Those are questions that I just don't answer, because I don't have the right answer to give it to you. But my fear and worry is revenue that the village makes today, will that same revenue be available in a citizenship after it's been abolished, no longer a village, then becomes a hamlet? Inside its hamlet time, will it remain and retain its finance that it produces then? Or will that go to the town of Hempstead? And will the town of Hempstead, once it gets that revenue, restore that revenue back to the city of Hempstead, or whatever name it may be? Those are some serious issues. And then the question is, do the village need to be resolved?
Free yourself.